Hey everybody, welcome back to another reasonable price prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoin could be headed. Now today we're looking at Chainlink, and Chainlink is one of my favorites to look at because it's just a strange altcoin. It hasn't performed like a lot of other altcoins, and you could argue with me and say, well, I see the line go up and I see the line go down during Bullrun and bear run years, and that is true. However, what's unique about Link is oftentimes we see it, or we have seen it, in the one time that we kind of have as historical data, we have seen it rally much earlier than most other altcoins. And instead of seeing these extremely volatile moves up and then these extremely volatile pulls down, it actually likes to make strong moves up and then just sit in a range. And while these still are extremely volatile moves that we saw last cycle, especially pre-halving, they're not as volatile compared to the majority of the other crypto space. And we'll also talk about, if you watched the last video, you'll know what I'm going to say, but we'll talk about how I think Chainlink is a very good hedge compared to Bitcoin. I know what you're thinking, Bitcoin's probably the best hedge you can have in the crypto space, and to be honest with you, I would agree. I would say Bitcoin is your safest bet. However, from how Chainlink has performed previously, during certain parts of the market cycle, Link outperforms Bitcoin during a time when Bitcoin is outperforming the rest of the market. So just something to be aware of. And while for this cycle, you might have missed your opportunity to hedge your bets with Link instead of Bitcoin, even though you still have a window of about 8 months to potentially hedge in a way where Chainlink performs better than Bitcoin, potentially. It's also just something to be aware of for maybe next cycle. And if you found this video useful or other videos useful and you like the channel, consider signing up to FairDesk with the link in the description for low trading fees and a deposit bonus, as it gives a kickback to the channel. FairDesk is an exchange where you can go and trade Chainlink if you like. So after this video, you might be interested in maybe picking some up or shorting it or longing it. Again, I want you guys to come to your own decisions, but not only could you be helping yourself with their low fees, but you'd also be helping out the channel, which is hugely appreciated. Getting straight into it, we're going to talk about the similarities. So last video we spoke about these two zones that, while may look extremely different, basically played out very similarly. And that was basically because they both followed a Wyckoff pattern. And even though the Wyckoff pattern they followed deviated slightly, they both fell under that umbrella. And if you're not sure what a Wyckoff is, to use this as an example, with a Wyckoff we usually have a big sell-off where we put in some sort of a low, and then we have a high and test that low. We then have another high and come down to a lower low, a lower high, a lower low. We move back up to a lower high than the first, and then another lower high. Again, it doesn't have to be like 2 each time. It can just be one of each, like a higher low, a higher low. But this so far is playing out pretty well. So a high, a lower low, a lower high, a lower low. We come back and revisit that lower low. We come in and revisit a lower high. This doesn't really mean anything. Again, check out this lower high. Put in a new lower low, which often indicates the end of the Wyckoff. And then we put in back to this lower high, have a bit of a retracement, and then balloon straight up. And we see basically a reverse play out where we have like a U pattern play. And we can see that basically a similar thing happened here. We have a high, a low, a lower high, a higher low, and then we move straight out of it. Now, one thing that does deviate between the two is the length of time that they spend. Here we spend about 1.5 years, 420 days within this orange range. And over here, this time we spent about 525 days within this range. So again, a longer time period, but as we've seen this cycle, a lot of altcoins and Bitcoin has spent a longer time going down. And while previous cycles we've seen more volatile moves over shorter periods of time, Chainlink and most other altcoins this cycle has seen a much slower play out. It's been historically a very long bear market for the crypto space. Anyway, after this orange, we saw a move to the upside. And again, another bit of a contradiction, or not a contradiction, but something that hasn't played out the same, or we talk about diminishing returns, is that when we moved out of this orange zone originally to this yellow, we had a resistance set of 60 cents, and we moved up to a low, the yellow support of about $1.80, which equated to basically a 200% move. And if we take a look at how much of a move we've made here from our previous resistance to our supports, it's quite meager. It's a 30% move. And that's from a high, a resistance of $9.50, to a low of $12.20. So again, price volatility has already shrunk quite a bit. But while a lot of people would argue that's a bad thing, I think that, to be honest with you, for the role that Chainlink has started to play, in my opinion and in my view, this is a really good thing. And again, Chainlink is not one of those coins I think is going to explode and do crazy. Even though last cycle, if you were buying in this orange zone, you were making huge amounts of money, 2,500%, 250x's. Here, if you're buying at the low and selling at the previous all-time high, you're still making money, but it's only a 10x. And while 10x is still very strong, I doubt very few people bought here, and I doubt very few people are going to sell at the all-time high. And now, probably realistically, Chainlink will go above previous all-time high. I could see a $70 Chainlink. I could see an $80 Chainlink. It might not happen, but I can see that. I'm just saying it's not a crypto that I would expect to go on parabolic rallies. What I do expect from Chainlink is that when it makes a notch up and it moves up to a new level, it stays at that level. And for me, I would not expect at all Chainlink to move below back to this orange zone. So for me, Chainlink is stuck in this yellow zone. And that might be foolish to assume that, and it probably is, to be honest with you. Just from previous price performance, I cannot see Chainlink dipping back below. And we see it oscillates within ranges. It doesn't always oscillate well. Sometimes we have explosive moves to the upside. Sometimes we test the lows and wick below them. But one thing Chainlink has done is stayed within that range. And now we're into this yellow zone. Now you can see that last time we had these numbers here, and they basically indicated a pattern that Chainlink followed. There's lots of them, but I just pointed out a few of them. And that was basically Chainlink has a rally, it puts in a high. This is that high for this example. It then retraces and puts in a low, or a higher low from previously. It then rallies up and puts in a higher high above the first high, and then retraces back to the initial high. And that becomes a support instead of a resistance. And we see it happen here, we see it happen here. It happens all over the place with Chainlink, especially over these years where it's moving upwards, which is much longer than most other cryptocurrencies. And we could argue that something has played out here where we've moved from a low, we've put in a high, which is 1, where this line indicates the resistance. We've moved down to a low, and now potentially we could put in another high that's somewhere a bit further up potentially, only to retrace back to our resistance, or our support, that was once our initial resistance for our first high. So again, a lot of similarities playing out for Chainlink. These yellow zones are actually also copies of themselves, so it just so happens that the range fits pretty well so far. Again, it'll probably need adjusting, but just so you know, the current range that I expect Chainlink to operate within is $19.50 with a low of $12.20. I don't expect Chainlink to break too far above or too far below this range for the next few months, not at least until the halving. And now another sort of not red flag, but like contradiction or perhaps invalidation to what I believe is how long we've spent or could spend in this yellow zone. And that could just boil down to basically we spend less time in the yellow zone because Chainlink rallied after the halving and it rallied into the halving. So Chainlink might naturally just rally up from here. We might not spend very long here at all. We might rally up. Or Chainlink might just spend a longer period of time and not rally up into the halving, not rally up immediately after the halving, but spend a similar time of, how long was this? A year basically before the halving, trading sideways. There is a potential for this. I don't think you can write that off. But a contradiction to that is that we spent approximately 130 days more in this orange zone compared to what we did last time. And if you want to take away 120 days from a year, you're going to be left with somewhere around 240 days. Even if we draw that out, it puts us roughly to whereabouts I've drawn this yellow range from, which ends in July. So there's a chance that Chainlink doesn't rally until maybe July. There's a chance Chainlink rallies before the halving like it did last cycle and continues to rally up. I would prescribe to the fact that most likely Chainlink will leave this zone by or before July. Another quick thing to look at and compare before we move on to the Bitcoin pair is what Chainlink did with its bull market support band moving up. And we can see when it first rallied up, it shot up and then eventually slowly retraced and went slightly below the bull market support band. If we take a look at what's happened so far, we see we had this explosive move up, but we haven't yet hit the bull market support band. So you could expect a bit of a retracement perhaps if you think that we are due a touch of the bull market support band. I think that's probably likely. At some point we will touch the bull market support band, especially if it's going to stay within this range. I think we will almost definitely come back to the bull market support band at some point and maybe even go below it. We see here that because we spent a longer period of time, the bull market support band averaged out, and even though it did trend upwards, Chainlink still spent a good amount of time below and a good amount of time above. And then, of course, after the halving, Chainlink rallied up. Just to reiterate again what I think about Chainlink, we see that it rallies much earlier on, and it roughly coincides with the theory that every 4 years we have a big bull run, like in 2021 and in 2017, and every 4 years we have a smaller bull run, like in 2019. And this is where Chainlink started to rally initially. We can see that basically as soon as it turns 2019, a little bit before, Chainlink rallies and puts in these really strong moves. But instead of, like the other cryptocurrencies, having a pullback during this time and revisiting its previous lows, Chainlink actually holds its ground and stays a peg above the rest, and then continues to rally again once the rest of the crypto space moves up. So we saw that it had a lot of the upside without the shortcomings of a lot of other altcoins during this time. So potentially we could see a move like this where a lot of the other altcoin space and markets has a pullback, potentially leading up to the halving. We've seen it before, but Chainlink holds its ground a bit and stays within a range. Just something to consider. Again, it is currently above its bull market support band. Most likely it will go below it at some point, even if it's just for a week or two. Switching to the Bitcoin pair on Chainlink, this is where I get my bullish sentiments for Chainlink. And this is where I want to make my argument that Chainlink outperforms Bitcoin during a time when the crypto space isn't at least in a bull run. It's not doing well, but potentially altcoins could be doing well. And there are probably altcoins that outperform Chainlink here on its Bitcoin pair. But in general, like I said, Bitcoin is like an index of the crypto space. If you buy Bitcoin, you're going to get reduced downside exposure, but reduced upside exposure from the crypto space. And during this time of 2019, when we had this mini rally, we can see that Chainlink continues to climb on its Bitcoin pair. Even when it's consolidating and not actually rallying on its US dollar pair, it's gaining value against Bitcoin. And it does this all the way up until Q3, basically, or the end of Q2, no, Q3, excuse me, yeah, of 2020. And then that's when, realistically, altcoins went crazy, and Chainlink didn't go crazy here. I mean, it still did well, but so did Bitcoin, but it still lost a bit of value. And we can see actually over the bull run year, from 2021 to 2022, Chainlink basically trades down. And now it holds this medium line, this average, whatever you want to call it. It does stay above it for most of the year, so it doesn't lose a lot of value against Bitcoin. But during a bull run year, Chainlink doesn't do great. It does mediocre. Well, it loses value to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is one of the underperformers of a bull run, usually. Bitcoin leads the rally and then altcoins are the ones that steal the show. And again, if we go back to sort of how Chainlink got into this position and where it started, we can see that the bull run is 2017. And then for 2018 to basically the end of 2019, Q3 of 2019, Chainlink trades down. You know, it goes from its high of its resistance here to its low, and then it just trades up on its Bitcoin pair for the next 2 years, basically, where it goes from mid-2018 to mid-2020, 2 years strong. And then for basically the next 2 years, Chainlink trades down on its Bitcoin pair, but not hugely losing a lot of value against it. But what has happened now is that in 2024, or at least the end of 2023, mid-2023, sorry, Chainlink has started to rally again. And it's broken above this resistance, it's broken above the medium, and it bounced from the low, like we saw last time. It bounced from the low, above the medium, above the resistance, and then continued to rally. And how long did it rally for? Up until basically the end of the halving year. So you could argue that we have another 6-7 months of Chainlink outperforming Bitcoin over the next few months. Now, a case that might make this less bullish is the fact that how we've performed with the bull market support band here. First of all, it's not as harsh of an angle like we saw last time when we first moved up. We can see that, I mean, if we zoom out, like the bull market support band was basically vertical, 70 degrees basically for a long time. And while Chainlink did have an occasional wick below, and we did bounce off the bull market support band occasionally, most of its time it looked very convincingly above the bull market support band. If we take a look here, we can see it's not really the same story. We haven't moved as far up, and we've often come down and wicked quite far below. And even though we've had recoveries, it is a little worrying to me. What I think potentially caused this is this cup and handle pattern that's playing out on Chainlink on its Bitcoin pair. We can see that back in 2020, end of 2020, we put in this high that we then came back to and got rejected from at the end of 2023, November time. And we have now come back up to test this high. And this has very nicely played out in a cup and saucer pattern, where again, more or less halfway through in June, May time, we put in our low. So we've had like 6 months down, 6 months up. And again, this cup and saucer pattern often plays out in a way that is bullish. It often results in a move to the upside from the handle. And I think that would make sense because, first of all, we've had this huge green week from Link. It wouldn't be crazy to see another 2 or 3 of them afterwards, especially if this cup and handle pattern wants to play out how it would often do in most cases, which is again a bullish move to the upside. Again, I think Chainlink is a great asset. I think if you can, maybe not this cycle, but maybe next cycle, it would be worth. I'll probably be still making videos, hopefully, if nothing terrible has happened to me, I will still be making videos. So in sort of late 2018 time, what that's equivalent to 2026, give or take, late 2026 time would potentially be a time to look at Link, seeing how the chart plays out. Again, we could potentially just come back up to these highs that Link put in October. And at this point, other altcoins are doing well against Bitcoin. But that's usually after the halving, we have a rally from alts and then a pullback from Bitcoin, where Bitcoin takes back a lot of value from altcoins. Link rallied up all the way through this. There was no serious major pullback. And while this was the rally that altcoins saw, and while Link did have a pullback during the time, Bitcoin outperformed every single alt basically during these couple month windows. Link just continued to climb and climb and climb. Whereas a lot of the other altcoins didn't trade sideways, but they didn't really trend up either. They slowly crawled up, whereas Link went crazy. And then maybe by the time it's June or July, you want to move maybe into a bit of your Link into other altcoins that could potentially go higher. I think that would be a good strategy, but that's totally up to you for you to research and figure out whether you're comfortable taking that risk. I cannot tell you what I think you should do. I can only tell you what I think I would do and what I would be comfortable saying. All in all, I think bullish on its Bitcoin pair. I think we will probably revisit these highs on the Bitcoin pair of 15,500 Satoshis. In terms of US dollar, where I think Link could go, I mean, into the halving, again, oscillate within this range of below $20, above $12.20. In terms of Bullrun year, I expect Link to put in a high of probably around $80. I can't see Link breaking above $100, and that's just because of the lackluster moves that we've seen so far. And while Link could have a very strong bull run, if you are buying now at $17, $18, and hoping for an all-time high move or above, you're still only looking at, from current price, it's like a 3x to all-time high, and to $80, it's like a 5x away. And realistically, I think a 5x is possibly reasonable on Chainlink. It's not a crypto that's done crazy. It's a crypto that's plateaued and evened out as time has gone on. Even though it had such a parabolic first year, we've just seen a very slow move from Link, and the fact that, you know, we kind of missed out on a 200% move and we got a 30% move instead is a little worrying to me, potentially forecasting that we're getting much less stronger moves to the upside and in turn the downside, which could be a very good thing for a bull run year for a bear run year, where we see less price drop, but worse than a bull run year where we see less price gain. Anyway, that about wraps it up. Check out FairDesk if you want a deposit bonus and discounted trading fees if you sign up with the link. Also helps out the channel hugely. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Comment down below what alt you want next, and if you agree with me on what I said about Chainlink. Talk to you guys next time. Take care and peace.